Welcome to today's episode of Expert Showcase. Today on the show we have Kara Melendy, and she's going to be talking to you, teaching you, showing you all about how womenpreneurs can overcome stress and grow a profitable business. Hey Kara, how you doing today?
Hi, Chris. Good. How are you? Happy to be here and connect.
Epic. Honored to have you on the show today. Folks, we've been doing our prep in the green room. We've been having so much fun. I mean, Kara is just going to be an epically awesome guest. I mean, you're going to want to stick around and listen to her heroine's journey, and you're definitely going to want to stick around till the second half of the show where we talk all about how womenpreneurs can overcome stress and grow a profitable business. Because let's face it, for womenpreneurs, anypreneur, especially, stress can be so damaging to not only your health but your business. And we've got somebody on today that's going to be able to show you as a womanpreneur specifically how you can overcome stress and grow a profitable business. So I'm so looking forward to getting into this. Kara, as we do for all of our guests, we want to dig into your heroine's journey. Now, if this is your first time watching the show, what we want you to know is this: we shortcut the heroine's journey to a beginning, a turning point, and aftermath, and we have our epic guests like Kara go through, kind of tell you a little bit about themselves, a little bit about their journey, so you can know them better, understand more why they're people that you need to connect with after you're done watching the show, and learn little bits of tips and tricks and gold, as we call them, golden nuggets along the way. So Kara, let's dive right in. Give us a quick overview of your heroine's journey.
Sure. We'll just get started. And I can give a little bit of background on how I got into this work with women entrepreneurs, if you want to start with that. My background's actually in psychology. So very young, I was drawn to the psychology profession. I think I was about 12 in grade 7, and we had to choose careers that we wanted to do an overview of, and I chose psychologist at that time. And, initially it was just, I think, to better understand myself. I was fascinated with human behavior, wanting to know myself, understand the people around me. So I had my mind set on that pretty early on, and I feel blessed that kind of from a young age, I knew that what I wanted to go into. I know so many people struggle with that question, and it certainly has changed forms over the years, but overall, it was something I felt called to do. So I went on to do my master's in counseling psychology, and pretty soon after graduating, I jumped into wanting to open my own practice because I had felt like, really, it was pretty soon. I know a lot of people will, work in the field for years and kind of hesitate before jumping in head first with something like that. But I had felt like, in many ways, I had been waiting a long time throughout my schooling to do this. So, I jumped in pretty early, and that's when kind of the roller coaster journey of being an entrepreneur set in, when the clients didn't just magically appear, and I realized, I had spent a lot of time studying human behavior, but not a lot of time, if any, knowing how to market or run a business. That, really became a journey in itself. Was, how do I get my services out there? How do I reach clients? How do I find my niche? And really be able to add that value.
Yeah. And that's epic. And really, so it sounds like your journey started off as a psychologist, and really believing that was where you were going to make your mark. And then when I'll say you hung out a shingle and people just didn't come, then you figured there had to be another way and a different way to do it, and that's what led you into figuring out how to better market yourself and other womenpreneurs, which helps reduce stress. And that's kind of what led you into what you're doing today then. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. It's been a couple of years in, and I was doing some work at counseling agencies on the side. I became aware of the coaching profession, which I know has been around for a while, but I found even at that time, when I started kind of venturing more into life coaching, it was still so unfamiliar to a lot of people. They didn't really understand what life coaches did, what it was all about. but I loved that it was very solution focused, goal oriented, and didn't really get lost in the past or get so bogged down in the problem that you couldn't move forward. So I really appreciated that about it. So pretty early on, I kind of ventured more into the coaching avenue, and then specifically wanting to work with other women entrepreneurs, mainly who were more spiritually minded, and really helping them, grow their own business and offer services so they could create, a large impact in the world, and not have to go through some of the struggles that I did, learning how to market everything and kind of doing it all backwards, really, in hindsight, seeing as how I approached it, right, without that knowledge of business and marketing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's an epic place to start and dig back into each of the areas. So let's really jump back to the beginning, because you said at an early age that it sounded like you kind of knew that where you wanted to go was psychology and human behavior. What led you to that?
Yeah, it's, again, I think initially to kind of better understand myself, I had felt always like an outsider, really, and I didn't always know why, but it just felt like I didn't quite fit in with the people around me, and always just feeling different in some way. And really wanting to understand that. And I had also struggled a lot with anxiety from an early age, different social anxiety, general anxiety. And I wanted to really help myself get over that. And I had worked with different counselors, kind of in and out of working with therapists around that. And I mainly thought, I want to be able to work through this on my own. Like, it's nice to have this help, but ultimately it comes down to me being able to apply this information and move forward. So I think that was part of the interest early on, with some of my own issues around experiencing anxiety in my life, and just kind of feeling like I couldn't quite connect with the people around me, led me to want to explore that a little deeper, and wanting to better understand myself and how I could help empower myself. At that time, I don't know if I would have used that language, but looking back, I think that's what I was really doing, was just wanting to get a clear idea of what I'm all about and where I fit in and what I have to offer.
Yeah, and it's so amazing that when you realize that, I think a lot of us feel like we don't fit in. I mean, I know I was bullied when I was a kid, and I had different interests. I mean, I was into bowling. I mean, and for those non-Americans out there, yes, I'm talking 16-pound bowling ball. It's funny. I've said that people go, "Wow, you want to be a professional bowler? That's really cool. How'd you get into cricket?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got to remember, cricket's now bigger than bowling." So, but it was, I was a bowler and an actor. So of course I didn't fit in. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's there's definitely levels in high school, and the drama club, and the bowlers and the drama geeks, definitely are not ones that fit in, except with our own little clique. I mean, but the interesting part is that when you take something like that and turn it into, okay, I got to figure out more about myself, and I got to learn more about what's going on. How can I make my, I guess, let me ask you a question, because I was just thinking about it. Did you do it from the standpoint of how can you make yourself better? Did you do it from a standpoint that you wanted to fit in more, or what was your, I was going to say, what was your motivation as a younger person to really start and learn and understand more about yourself like that?
Well, I think at that time it was, honestly, to feel like I had to improve myself. Like, it was almost this feeling that I was flawed in some way. I mean, looking, now in hindsight, I see it differently. The goal would have been to really accept and appreciate myself. And, that's when I could really have stepped into my power. But then it was from a standpoint of what can I do to try to, fit in. And in terms of the anxiety, what can I do just to feel better and manage this, in my own way, without needing to turn to medication or any of that, because I felt for me it wasn't at the point where I ever needed that. I wanted to be able to go within and to, help myself manage it, because again, coming back to that empowering aspect, why couldn't I have those answers from within myself? But yeah, to answer answer your question, Chris, I think initially it was that standpoint of how can I better myself, or how can I change myself so I can fit in and feel more accepted.
Wow, and you know that is so profound and so deep. And the interesting thing is you've been successful and you've turned turned from from being in the mental health field to being into the coaching field, and we're going to get all into that here in a little bit. But what's so profound for me about what you just said is the fact that most people, myself included, when we were being bullied or we didn't fit in, we complained a lot, and that didn't want to try and change. And you took a different route. You said, okay, you know, I need to understand myself better, and maybe there is something I can do. Maybe there is something I can do to better myself to actually change. See, I mean, I grew up with parents who basically said, well, if somebody was making fun of you, they were just jealous of you. So I had no reason. I had the typical upbringing where I had no reason to change. Like, hey, you're jealous of me. That's great. It's like, and it was well-meaning parents. And there's actually a reason for this story I'll get to in a second. A lot of us have well-meaning parents. My adopted parents are very well-meaning. They want to help you get over it. If you're overweight, they tell you you're just big boned, and they want to try and con and ease, and make things easy for you instead of questioning, because sometimes they're scared because they don't have the answers. So the reason I bring all that up is to ask you about about your parents and your upbringing. Were your parents a driving force behind it? Like, did they say to you, hey, there must be something wrong with you kids, so go figure it out? Or did they play any, and I should have said with a bigger smile on my face, it was kind of a little bit of a joke. I know it's not, it did not sound joking, but it's kind of, it was meant to be a little bit more fun and lively. But did your parents play any sort of role in pushing you in that direction, or supporting you in going that direction, or telling you not to go in that direction?
Honestly, I think a lot of it was internal. I tried to keep a lot from my parents. I don't think they realized a lot of what I was going through in school. And in terms of the bullying too, I certainly went through a phase where I was bullied. And where I felt there was something wrong with me, or I was kind of flawed, I think there was an embarrassment around that, and not wanting to that to my parents. And I think that's where kind of my perfectionism comes into play too, where I didn't want them to think that, I was letting them down in any way, or I kind of felt ashamed that, wow, why am I not this popular kid? And I don't know if they did anything directly to put that pressure on me. I feel a lot of it was more internal. But it's interesting what you were saying about your parents and the jealousy. My mom would make that comment too. If someone doesn't like you, that just means they're jealous. They're jealous. But yeah, so I think a lot of it was just that internal drive. Like, I don't think my parents knew a lot of what was going on, especially my dad. My mom maybe knew a little more about bullying, and often later on, like, I would tell her after I was through things what was going on in school, and she was always somebody that would, if she knew, she would really kind of like, I'd be afraid she'd go to the school. And that kind of super protective parent. And in my earlier years, like 7 or 8, if there was any issues with teachers or kids, she would be in the school calling parents. So I think maybe that was actually part of it as well, why I wanted to keep it hidden, because I didn't want her to do that for me. Yeah.
Well, and that's a great example of well-meaning parents making things worse when they're trying to make things better. It's like there is a level, and it's gonna be a real quick thing. There is a level where parents should get involved when their kids are being really bullied, and it's really, when it's super detrimental to the kids. There's a lot of parents who get involved a lot sooner than, I'll say, they quote unquote should, and it ends up making it even worse for the kids. Where like when I grew up, it was, granted, my parents would get involved if really necessary, but a lot of it was go figure it out on your own. I mean, you go handle it. And I think that it was, I think we're talking, maybe a different time and everything, but now we're getting off a real big tangent on a whole nother topic for a complete other show. We'll have to have you back. We'll have to have you back on. We'll talk about parenting tips, but in the interest of time and out of respect for your time and our viewers' times, is there one thing from the beginning phase that you would call a golden nugget, or something, either a golden nugget from the beginning phase, or something that you look back on it now and say you wish you would have known back then? Either one.
Right. I think the big thing was that I was okay just the way I was. Again, looking back, thinking I was flawed, when honestly, if I had just stepped into who I was and I was confident with that, everything else would have fell into place, because I wouldn't have cared what the other kids thought, and they probably would have been more drawn to me because I was so confident in who I was. So I think that was, you're okay. You don't need to be perfect. You're okay just as you are, imperfections and everything, right?
Yeah.
I think that was certainly the big lesson, and just in self-acceptance as well, to accept where I was, who I was at that time, and just honor that. And honestly, that's an ongoing, I think, lesson as well for me to continue to apply that. Wait, you're okay the way you are. I think especially with personal growth, it's so easy to get wrapped up in, what do I need to fix? What do I need to change? And instead of just accepting that, wait a second, I can still do personal growth and come at it from a place of just taking it to the next level, rather than I'm flawed from who I am now. So I think that's probably the biggest.
Exactly, and that's an epic golden nugget, and that's a great place to actually migrate from the beginning into the turning point. So you're at this point where you've got, you decided in school you're going to be a psychologist and study all about human nature, and then you went to college or university, as our European brethren will say. Do they say university or college in Canada? I know we've already got the niche thing out of the way, but is it university or college in Canada?
No, we didn't discuss that one. I went to university.
University, okay. See, us Americans, we're just screwed up. I mean, we don't speak real English. We figured out a way to just say the things we want, and the heck with the rest of the world. See, at least I admit it. Go America. But anyway, that's besides the point. So you decided to go to university, and you decided to hang out your shingle and now, was it a psychologist or a psychiatrist, so I can get that right?
Yeah, well, and it was actually, technically it would be like counseling, because my background was master's in counseling psychology. So it's really strict terminology you're able to use. So technically it would have been psychologist, it would have been counseling therapist, like mental health therapist, but it's kind of counseling role. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're a mental health therapist, and things, like you said, you went to school for that, but didn't do a lot of research on marketing, and it was kind of, hey, let's hang the shingle out. We get done with university, hang the shingle, and people start to come. And I think you were saying, we were going over your background, that that's not exactly what happened, right?
No, it wasn't what happened. And I was so eager, and I'm so glad I took that leap of faith when I did, because it was so easy to say, no, I'll just wait. But I was at a place where I thought, why not just start now? Like, I may take time to grow this, so start as young as I can, and we'll go from there. But I probably did a lot backwards in terms of marketing. Like, I spent a lot to have a really nice website, had the business cards done, and I thought, okay, I'll just, once I have the site, I'll post like business cards around in grocery stores or libraries, and I'll just kind of wait for the calls to come in and to connect with people. And that didn't actually happen. I didn't hear from too many people. Now looking back, not surprisingly, because, well, I didn't do a whole lot of sales and marketing. Apart from the website, I didn't do a lot of actually reaching out and forming relationships with people. And so I kind of felt stuck in that for a while. I was working on the side in counseling, so I was getting the experience in that side of it. After having the schooling, I was able to apply it, but again, it was still missing out on the marketing piece. So, I had eventually reached out and started working with a coach to help grow my business and help get me out there and give me some tools and tips on, how to get word out about my services, and, how to find that target market. And even, a big part as well, just stepping out of the comfort zone, because I was so terrified to really kind of put myself out there in that way. And I know now a lot of entrepreneurs go through that fear of judgment and what will other people think, and, all those fears.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up the fear of judgment and what other people think. And I was going to make the joke. Do you mean that when people go to the supermarket, or do they call them supermarkets up in Canada? Do we grocery stores? There we go. See, I'm trying to learn how to learn how to speak real English instead of this thing we do in America. But see, when people go to supermarkets, they're not also looking for a mental health therapist. I thought that was just normal. No, just hey, go to the supermarket, give me give me 3 pounds of meat and a mental health therapist, and I'm good for I'm good for today, because I will meet the mental health therapist after I finish gorging myself on this meat. But thank you. But no,
I need to tell.
But the interesting thing you bring up, and I want to pull something out of that experience. You did what a lot of people do, which is, and even I've suggested, at the beginning, clients do this. Go and you put your flyers up, and you put your business cards up, and you put things up. But the interesting thing that you said, and it's a reason that people do it and they don't even realize, because they're scared at the beginning. They're scared of that personal rejection. Granted, it's easier, and you can rationalize you can say, well, I put the cards up and I've done this. But I think what you're also saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's, part of it is that fear of rejection. So when you're doing something that's nameless and faceless, like putting it up on a bulletin board, nobody has to reject you personally. If they don't call you, they're not looking at you square in the face going, I'm not going to use you. But if you go out and try to market and try to deal with people individually, then they could. I mean, do you think that played any role in how long it took you to do a different form of marketing?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Again, that fear. And I would remember getting, when I would get a call or someone would come across my website, it was like part of me, was even terrified to see them. So like energetically, right? Like I was putting out mixed vibrations, really, to the universe, because part of me wanted the clients, obviously wanted the business, but then another part of me was just terrified to actually have people come in and see me. And that's where some of the self-doubt came into play too, like doubting my abilities. So I'm sure, that would come across in my actions as well, of, almost subconsciously, but sabotaging myself in different, right? Like,
yeah, it's like yeah, universe, give me clients. Oh shit, universe, you gave me a client. I mean, that's it's funny. That's what all coaches, I went through the same thing, at the beginning when I started a different coaching practice many, many years ago. I mean, I'll never forget the anxiety. It's like when you schedule a client, when a client actually says yes, then the worst part is the anxiety before the first call. It's like, oh my gosh, and you go through all these feelings of what if I'm not good enough, or what if I don't make a difference, or what if I don't, what if. And the worst part when you're in the personal growth, or as I started off in the leadership field, you can't give those mixed messages to clients, because then you're never going to make the breakthroughs for them, and you're not going to be able to learn from what's going on inside yourself to make you a better coach. So
absolutely.
yeah, so from the turning point perspective, when did it change? When was it a single moment where you had a realization, hey, I need more clients, or did somebody say something to you, or when did it change where you actually started to say, okay, I've got to do something different and make a change here?
Right. And, to bring it full circle, it was gradual, but when the initial turning point would have been when I reached out to work with a coach and finally had some guidelines of what to do, and say, okay, I'm going to start hosting workshops. I'm going to start posting regularly on Facebook with a certain intent behind my posts. I'm going to start, reaching out and attempting to connect with people and bring them on discovery calls. So essentially, when I started having a sense of direction of where to go with my business, instead of just having no idea. And, alongside that work with the coach, I was able to let go of a lot of the fears that I had as well. And, it's interesting talking about the first part of the story with the bullying or feeling like I don't belong. That was coming out in terms of my business too. And it's interesting. I'm seeing your business, running a business seems to bring all your fears to light, all your weaknesses and your strengths. You know, it just kind of shines light on it all.
It is a huge magnifying glass. So, you know, it's funny, Kara, because I got to take a quick digression here. I mean, it's so amazing. I, I'm thinking that we have to have you back on, have a complete different conversation because you've got so much to share, and I think your journey is epic. You know, I don't have at my command the time today to really dig deeper in because you just also brought up, or I should say, you also just brought up something else, you know, about having a direction and how that puts your mind at ease. So one of the things I want to tell the folks right now, you know, we're going to wrap up the turning point and we're going to get into the aftermath. But part of that golden nugget that you just heard about having a direction is so key and critical. And I want to reach and talk directly to our viewers for a second. If you have fear that you're not good enough, forget about the fact that Kara and I are coaches, and forget about the fact that the first words out of our mouth are usually find a coach. Here's the reason why. Coaches can help provide you a direction when you're afraid that the direction you're going in might not be good enough. So if you're afraid of your own direction, if you're afraid of not knowing what's going on, if that fear is inside of you, and if you're always looking for the next swipe file or the next thing to come out because you feel other people's words are better than yours, find a coach to help you, find a coach to help you through that. We talk more about that. It might even come up in the whole Womenpreneur segment in the second half, but I felt called to right now reach out to people who are watching us that are afraid and just say, look, if you are, that's the best time to find a coach and get one that can help provide you good direction, because that helps you overcome that internal fear that the way you're going isn't good enough or isn't right. I mean, Kara, just real quick, I mean, does that resonate with you? Does that sound, am I on base with that?
100%. And I think it's interesting you mentioned that about being coach or promoting that. And I've heard that on podcasts before too. I'm like, of course coaches are saying get a coach. And it's interesting here talking with you, reflecting on my story. I'm saying the same thing because that's what my experience was, being genuinely like I, was lost without that sense of direction and that help. I was honestly wasting a lot of energy and time in the wrong direction. So it was a huge turning point to give me that sense of focus, to help me work through my fears and really get me to where I wanted to be in my business, or at least a huge head start in that direction. So, absolutely, Chris. Yeah.
Epic. And I think that really leads us into, then we'll go ahead and jump into the aftermath. So, at the beginning, you felt you were going to go down the mental health counselor route. You did it because you wanted to understand more about yourself, and then realized you had a passion for it. And then you went to university, graduated, hung out a shingle. Nobody came, and you realized that you needed a different direction, and you got a coach. I mean, we talked a lot about marketing, that marketing helped to build the business, but I think really, like you said, the turning point that brought it back full circle was getting a coach. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Who knows? Maybe we don't need a whole nother episode. Maybe we'll just talk about here in the aftermath. I don't know what I'm saying at this point. Thank goodness I don't use a teleprompter or a script. But no, so the whole point is you got a coach. How did that start to change your view of everything, your view of your business, your view of yourself? What did you go through when you got that coach, and how did it start to change everything?
Well, it really helped me step up and take ownership too, because I realized on one level I wasn't being fully committed to my business either. And, that had, nothing to do with having to work a little bit on the side to support myself. I mean, I think, that can be necessary for people, but it was really a mindset shift. Like I was still in a place of fear where I hadn't fully committed. So again, those kind of mixed signals that I'm sending to the universe, sending to my clients, to the people around me of wanting to grow this business, but of course having fear get in the way from fully jumping in. So that helped me commit on a whole different level and really say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to grow a coaching business. I want to be able to help people deal with their stress and anxiety. And through, learning those tools myself, that's when I really started focusing on helping other women entrepreneurs and wanting to share that with them, and then bring in that element of the stress stress management, which I think is absolutely huge. So we don't wind up in a place of burnout and stress. We can't get anything done, right? If we're that overwhelmed, we can't be creative, we can't get focused, and we actually can't get to work. So that's how this kind of eventually came together.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. And yes, folks, I was biting my nails. It was kind of these, stress. It's much better to work with Kara than sit and bite your nails all day long. So one of the questions, though, would be, here in the States, and this might be a cultural thing or it might be a country thing, so I'm not sure. That's why I'm going to ask it this way. Here in the States, when we talk about mental health professionals, we're talking about licensed professionals, people who've gone to university, gone to college, graduated with a degree, master's in sociology, something like that. Sometimes they're PhDs and are doctors. I'm not sure that, I don't know if licensed counselors need to be doctors, but I know a lot of them are actually PhDs and that sort of thing. So I'm showing my ignorance. Maybe I'm talking out my patootie here. I have no clue. That's a new word. That'll be in the English dictionary next year. But that's besides the point. My question to you is this, is that in Canada, when you graduated and were doing the mental health counseling, is that a licensed professional where, it's you can do insurance and that sort of thing? Is that what that is, or is it closer to what we would consider coaching, basically life coaching and everything, where you don't really need an official license or an official doctorate, where it's you're a counselor that's just that's sitting there, doing using talk therapy and everything. Which way does it go up there?
Right, yeah, and that's a good question because there are so many different levels in the field. So when I graduated, it would be, I considered like I'm able to practice mental health once I get registered. So that's kind of just another step as well. But as a registered counselor, there would definitely be, legislation or regulations around that where you can then work with different insurance companies or employee assistance programs to provide counseling and
And here's the reason I asked that question is because here in the States, and this is the second part of that question, here in the States, when a mental health professional, licensed counselor or psychologist, psychotherapist decides to go from that to coaching, it's a huge change for them because they really have to, in most cases, they almost have to divest themselves from being that mental health professional because it's a completely different thing. Because coaches, hey, I'm a coach. I love coaches, but we should never be diagnosing mental issues because we're not skilled and prepared for it. So there are some that kind of straddle the line because they have both. But that's kind of the question I was going to get to is you had a particular business model. When you switched to coaching, was it a complete switch in your business model where you really had to act different, or was it an extension, or how did that all work?
Yeah, well, it's still me showing up for either client, but it's certainly, it's a different approach, right? Because it's, for one thing with the coaching, I'm working to find clients myself that I connect with and resonate with instead of being able to, sign on with different insurance plans. Like you said, it's not kind of the diagnosing elements. So the clients that are coming in for coaching usually aren't coming in, for that kind of treatment of, help me with depression or anxiety, right? It's more, future focus. These are the goals. This is what I want to achieve. So it's a much lighter feeling to it as well. Just the energy around it is quite different because you're not getting into the diagnosis and a lot of that stuff. So it really is a whole separate thing, absolutely, and often a whole different approach that's used as well. Again, it isn't so much going over the past unless it's something that's still affecting you today. So it is different methods that are used and all that stuff. So it's it was a shift on many different levels, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's great. And part of the reason I asked is going to lead into the next question is when you started working with a coach, did the coach look into your business, your mental health business, and try and help you pick out what you really loved and what you didn't like about it, and start to allow you to see that there were pieces of it that might be holding you back or that you might need to do you might need to do differently? And is that what caused the change in the coaching and changing your business model, or did that not happen and it was something different?
Yeah, and I think that was kind of like a gradual thing as well, is realizing the approach is very different. I mean, again, with the counseling, it tends to be very much one-on-one hourly sessions, whereas with coaching, you more are likely to offer programs or different workshops that people come to and commit, a larger amount of time. So the model that's used is a little bit different too. So it's kind of getting out of, you book one client at a time for an hourly session to you can create these coaching packages and really develop a plan to help people move forward. So, on that level, it was different as well.
But I guess my deeper question there is, did the coach help you in that direct? Did the coach help you recognize things like that, and was it the coach that helped you change? And there actually is I'm going to summarize this. There actually is a reason to all these questions. Did the coach actually help you kind of summarize and shift gears and shift focus at that point?
Yeah, and I mean, that was kind of my desire as well. Like, again, the more I had heard about coaching, that was something that I wanted to, dive deeper into that other side of it too. So there was some help in being able to switch that over and in changing that mindset as well of what it looks like to, be the mental health professional as opposed to being a coach.
Yeah, and here's the reason I ask all these questions. I think this is kind of a good place to slowly start to wrap up the heroine's journey. Fact of the matter is a lot of people watching the show today, and maybe even you personally there on the blue couch. Yeah, put the soda down. It's okay. Pick up a coffee or no, I'm just kidding. But that's besides the point. Pick up your drink of choice. People sometimes really need a good stiff one to get through this whole show. I don't know that, but that's what they tell me. So anyway, but the fact of the matter is that we're all in places at some points where we question where things might, where things just aren't going right, and we question how can we make things better. What it sounds like you did, Kara, was not only question, it's like, okay, things should be going well, but they're not. Start questioning and start looking for different avenues to practice something similar to what you're doing. I mean, is that a fair statement where things weren't going good and you just went out and looked and said, okay, I kind of like doing this. Are there different ways I could do the same thing that might go better for me?
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, I think it kind of evolves with me, and I'm sure my business will continue to do that as I grow and change. So, and at the time early on in my life where I was really trying to figure out and work through my own feelings of anxiety, being drawn to the psychology profession was something that was huge. And as I was able to work through more of that and at a different stage, then my interests also shifted, and who I wanted to work with changed as well, and what I wanted to offer them. And there's certainly a lot of wonderful, techniques and ways that I've learned to build rapport and connect with people from my training that'll, continue to help me, no question. But I think, that kind of evolution that you're talking about, Chris, was, the evolution within myself. And as I changed and I grew, my interest in what I wanted to offer changed along with that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place. I couldn't have said any better myself, and I think that's a great place to kind of take a breath for a second. So, folks, we're going to go ahead and take a 30-second break. On the other side of the break, we're going to continue talking with Kara, and this is where we're going to dive in to her whole expert focus and how womenpreneurs can overcome stress and grow a profitable business. And let's face it, those are two things that are extremely important to all entrepreneurs and womenpreneurs, in particular. Reducing stress, overcoming stress, and growing a profitable business. Because let's face it, you can't turn the light on for somebody else if you can't afford to pay your own electricity bill. I almost got that quote right. I'll get it right eventually. So, folks, stick around and we'll be right back. Raise your hand if you could use more clients. Now keep those hands up if you know that the best, most efficient, most effective way to attract your ideal client is to create great client attracting content that connects with your ideal client and makes it easier for you to convert them into paying clients. Now, whether you have your hands up or have your hands down, I invite you to join me on the Create, Connect, and Convert Online Summit. It's where I and other people who are real-world practitioners masters of creating great client attracting content are going to share our secrets with you. The summit is online. It runs Wednesday, April 13th through Saturday, April 23rd. You need to go out to the web address on your screen at this point, register to reserve your seat. And remember, you want to join us on the Create, Connect, and Convert online summit, because creating content is how you spread your message, reach more people, and make a bigger difference. Welcome back to today's episode of Expert Showcase. As you see, we have Kara Melendy on the video line with us, so to speak, and straight from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And we've already for those Canadian watchers like Mark Mawhinney and other fans of the show, we got the niche versus niche out of the way. We understand that it's a university, not college, so we're okay. I'm getting re-educated in the fact that America, in the fact that I admit it. Americans don't speak proper English. Everybody else does, and that's okay. I'm comfortable in my non-proper English self. So anyway, enough about me. We're going to get back to the important person on today's episode, which is Kara, and this is all about her expert focus. And remember, folks, expert is an overused term. These people that we have on Expert Showcase don't call themselves experts. We call them experts. If they call, most people, if they would call themselves an expert, would kind of look a little sideways and might not actually have them on. So Kara, we're looking at Kara as an expert. We've done the research on her background and taken a look at everything and invited her on the show. So you can trust that when we say we believe these people are experts, we're saying it, not them. In the end, this segment's all about how womenpreneurs can overcome stress and grow a profitable business. Kara, give our audience a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about in this part of the show today.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be revealing some success tips that really help you deal with stress in your life while at the same time being able to grow a business. Because I've seen with many women, and of course, going through it firsthand as well, with growing a business, that overwhelm and stress can certainly hold you back from taking action, from being creative, from getting the results that you want. So I really want people to, reduce those levels of stress so they can also have success and feel good, because it's no sense of being successful financially, having a thriving business, but then feeling exhausted and burnt out. I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose, because I think a lot of we're drawn to be entrepreneurs for that freedom and to be able to do what we love. So manage the stress around it and enjoy success at the same time.
Epic. And the three individual points we're going to be talking about are planning your week in advance, making self-care a priority, and developing healthy thinking patterns. And by the way, before we jump in, I love that word reveal. It's, I think, one of the first times anybody's ever used it on, and it's going to be much simpler for me to say reveal at the beginning of Expert Showcase than the whole talking, thinking, teaching you, telling you, and showing you all the crap I say. So thank you. I appreciate that. I'm stealing that. That'll be introed in some future episode of Expert Showcase. So I appreciate that, Kara. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So first of all, the first key to success here is planning your week in advance. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so really getting clear on the results that you want to create in your business and in your life. So having a clear plan, because it's so easy to, go into our week. Like as an entrepreneur, we don't have someone telling us when our deadlines are, when certain things are due. It's really up to us to create that. So if we don't have a clear plan, we waste a lot of time. And I've seen this with the women that I work with before I help them get a plan in place is, they'll start their day and they may say, okay, I'm supposed to do a post on Facebook. And then they'll pause. They'll be like, now what? They're like, okay, I'll check my email. So they're kind of jumping all over the place instead of going in, waking up and knowing, okay, I have 2 hours for social media, I'm going to devote it, an hour for checking my email, a few hours for my discovery calls, and basically is having blocks of time where they know what they're going to be doing. So they're not wasting all that energy, just scattering their energy, and as a result, getting a lot more accomplished with that sense of focus.
Yeah, exactly. Because as they say, if you don't fill your calendar, somebody else sure as heck will. It's really easy, whether it's a client, which is good, and or whether it's Facebook, which is now going to become even more of a time suck with Facebook Live video, with Facebook Live videos in groups going live. But so let me ask you that. When people, because I'm sure people resist this whole idea of a plan at the beginning, when they do they either do they ever give you the excuse that they're waiting for their client, and if their schedule is full, they won't be able to service their clients? Or do you ever get the feeling that they think if they leave their schedule just wide open, they're just going to magically attract more clients?
Those are good points, and I think that's the case. I've also worked with some clients who are afraid, like it'll take away that sense of being just spontaneous or almost infringe on their freedom, whereas actually planning gives you more freedom and a more sense of control over your business and where it's going. People definitely resist the schedule and the plan, and I think part of it too can be, if you're not used to it, it's really about forming a new habit as well. And like any new habit, it's really uncomfortable at first, and we tend to do everything to resist it and fall back into our old patterns of behavior. So really, yeah, just forming that new habit and seeing the results and, you know, the positive benefit it can have to really get clear on what you want to create. And like you were saying, Chris, as well, like if you don't plan or schedule your time, or I love the quote you used, like someone else will fill the time for you, because it's so easy to get caught up just doing the urgent stuff or things that get our attention right away, like, you know, emails, checking emails all day, text messages, answering every phone call we get. And, you know, you can easily spend your whole day doing that and then not getting to what's important, the stuff that's actually going to help you reach your goals. So
Yeah.
I would say, you know, the urgent stuff gets done because it has to. But if you don't put those goals or important things in place, that doesn't get done. So really making sure to plan, and, you know, as part of that plan, getting clear, each week I'll help my clients get clear on 5 main goals that they have, that they really want to achieve. And then each day focusing in on one main priority, because I've seen how to-do lists really don't work for anyone. I've been down that path. I'll make the list and never look at it again. So focusing on one main priority, and then if that gets done, 3 sub-priorities really helps people get that sense of focus.
Yeah, exactly. Or the to-do list that just keeps growing and growing and growing, and nothing ever gets checked off. And then, you know, then 6 months later, you look at the to-do list and you're looking at it, you're trying to figure out why you even had that stuff on there to begin with. That becomes one of the challenges, right? Is the fact that, you put things on your to-do list, it with all good intentions of getting them done because it is important at that point. But then, it goes by months, sometimes weeks or months go by and things don't get done. And then you have to look and go, okay, what was this even on here for? Why did I even want to do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now,
Oh, absolutely. Question it all together. Like, does it even have a purpose? Why? No wonder we don't look at our to-do lists again.
so,
we
so
create.
So this is a little bit different than planning your week in advance, but I just want to ask you real quick, as we're talking about the plans and to-do lists. When somebody goes to try and put something on a to-do list, do you have any method or system that you teach them or show them to make a decision on whether they should do it, whether it should go on the to-do list, or whether it's something that, let's face it, is never going to get done, so don't even worry about it? Do you go through that at all with your clients?
Yeah, well, I have this success planner that I'll give to my clients, and that's where kind of at the beginning of each week. So usually Sunday night, I suggest, picking the 5 goals for that week. So once you're clear on the 5 goals, then that can kind of guide your actions throughout the week. So, is this thing on your to-do list actually helping you reach your goal right now? Or is that, nowhere near going to help you, further your goal? And in setting the goals themselves, and it really depends on where they are in terms of their business and, their end results. Again, if they're really just starting out, and so marketing and sales would be a huge thing. So how are you making those connections with other people? How are you spreading awareness about your services? So really helping them, again, get clear on the goals, and then each day deciding what the priority is that in alignment with my goals for this week? Is that helping me get there?
That sounds great. So I have a quick question for you as we're kind of getting to the end of the whole plan your week in advance. Um, what would you recommend people do, at the beginning of every week to set themselves up for success? And furthermore, how much time do you think that would save somebody if they do what you're about to tell them to do?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's really cool. If you actually take 15 minutes to plan at the start of your week, you save 4 hours over the course of a week, which is a huge savings of time. And again, it's because it takes away from that indecisiveness of getting up each day and not really knowing what you're going to be doing. Like you kind of have an idea, but you don't have it scheduled out. So you waste a lot of time switching in between tasks or just an indecision altogether. So I do recommend every Sunday night, sit down, get clear about those 5 main goals, and then each day what you can do to help you reach those goals. So when you wake up in the morning, you have a plan in place already. So already you're saving, you're saving time because you're not wondering, what do I have to do for this day? It's already kind of scheduled out for you. And again, I know the fears that have come up with my clients is that sounds so restrictive. But really, when you're doing that, it doesn't have that restrictive feeling because it frees up a lot of time as well. Like when you're organized, you can get things done much more quickly, and then you have more free time. And, there's always going to be things that come up anyway. So when you're organized, you have time to deal with, that urgent stuff or the phone calls or emails you don't expect.
Yeah, exactly. That is an epic piece of advice, and I think that's a great segue into making self-care a priority. So from the key to success number two, making self-care a priority, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, and this is where you really avoid burnout by making yourself a priority. And yeah, and talking about planning your week in advance, and in the success planner that I use with my clients, there's also a space within that to write how you're going to care for yourself each day. So, which is really important and again, often overlooked. So actually scheduling in time for self-care, I think, is really helpful because I know for myself, I don't schedule it in, it doesn't get done. And that can be in terms of self-care as well. And it may sound a little funny at first to schedule in a meditation time, but it's better than not getting it done at all, right? So, schedule in that time for yourself.
Well, and especially, I mean, whether it's a womanpreneur or whether, even a lot of guys feel this way, do you think that if you don't schedule self-care, do you think that our need to help other people overrides our need to help ourselves? And do you think that might be why that, if we don't schedule that self-care in, that it just ends up going to the bottom of the pile and gets ignored and gets ignored in favor of other things that might help somebody else during the day?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, especially as entrepreneurs, we tend to be very service oriented. So what we can do for others and, not always, but often more type A personality too, where it's go, 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 very task oriented and, wanting to get things done. So we can easily overlook the value of self-care or, as you had said, again, giving so much to others that we forget ourselves in the process. So it really is that mindset shift of I matter too. I need to take time for myself. And once you begin to schedule it in, like every morning I'll do 10 minutes for meditation, which isn't that long. It's very doable and makes a huge difference in how my day plans out. Just taking that time for me to get clear on what, I want out of the day. And before I jump into checking emails and messages, to be able to begin by having that time for me. And it becomes, over time, it'll become a habit. So it's more natural. So at first, really schedule it in. It might be effort to stick with it, but then it just becomes part of your routine. So I would definitely recommend scheduling in time for self-care.
Yeah, and that really becomes the key is creating a habit out of it. It's something that, as Tony Robbins talks about, at least used to anyway, about 30 days to create a new habit. So that's why you need to schedule it in at least at the beginning. But then after a while, creating a habit on it, you almost look forward to it, and it just becomes part of your ritual, part of your routine, and you feel, let me ask you this question. So you've scheduled certain things, and like you scheduled your meditation. If you find that there's a morning that either you accidentally wake up late or for whatever reason, don't get it done, do you find that, it kind of you miss it during the day and you kind of feel that sense of, hey, I didn't do something today and I should have or I need to?
Oh, absolutely. I notice it 100% because that's really what helps keep me grounded for the day and really set the intention. So I definitely, I notice that. If I don't fit it in, I feel the difference. Absolutely. I think it's so important. And that's what'll help you stick with it as well is, you notice it when you don't do it. You're like, oh, something's not off, something's not right. And, for me, I think that helps me be way more productive and yeah, super important to take that time. Something I recommend with my clients, and just taking that time for you is crucial and makes a world of difference in what you're able to accomplish throughout the day.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of interesting because one of the things you talk about is your body being in a fight or flight syndrome. Um, and, I'm guessing, or let me ask you this. Do you think that scheduling, not only self-care, but scheduling in general helps to reduce those stress hormones and that fight or flight response within your body?
Oh, I think absolutely it does, Chris, for sure. 'Cause you have more of that sense of control, whereas the fight or flight often stems from feeling completely out of control. And yeah, so when you schedule, you're able to get control of what you want to accomplish throughout your day and what you want to do so that calms down your nervous system. And when you're not in that fight or flight response, it opens you up to being much more creative as well. You're able to notice those things around you that you would miss if you're feeling very stressed and overwhelmed. So it's important because you want to feel at your best, you want to care for yourself, but then it also ends up being very beneficial for your business and what you're able to create, and of course through that creation service other people and offer to others.
Yeah, exactly. And then, to take it even one step further, I should say to get back to self-care, self-care by its very definition is you taking care of yourself. Do you think that self-care is only about you and should have you kind of in isolation where it's only you taking care of yourself, or are there other ways that you can make sure that you've got self-care baked into your environment that involve people other than yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important. For instance, having a support system in place would be crucial, especially as an entrepreneur. It's very easy to isolate yourself. Or be, behind a computer all day, or working on tasks individually, and that can even lead to depression if you're not careful. So really making sure that you do have that healthy support network. And I think especially with other entrepreneurs who get what you're going through and get those unique challenges that you're faced with, because it is, very different stressors than maybe working a 9-to-5 job. So reaching out and developing that healthy support network is huge. And, one of the reasons I love my mastermind groups is to be able to create that for women and to create that foundation of knowing, you're not alone in this and someone has your back. And we had talked earlier about that fear of judgment and criticism and what other people will say. And when you have that solid support system in place and people that are rooting you on, then you don't tend to notice that as much, or that fear kind of starts to go away when you realize you have so many people on your side and that are rooting for you.
Yeah, it ends up diluting the fear. I mean, let's face it, it's kind of like if you have if you have a bowl that's filled with water, and or I should say, if you have a bowl that has maybe a tablespoon of water in it, and you put a tablespoon of food coloring in, the water is going to pretty much turn the same color as that food coloring. Where if you dump a whole bunch more water in, it's going to dilute it, and it's going to be a lot lighter color. So if you put blue, if you put dark blue, if you put navy blue in, it's going to end up turning to a lighter or paler shade of blue. And that's where, the food coloring is that negative, and the water is really that positive support system that you can build, that you can build around you. And the more positiveness and the more positive energy you have come in, it will dilute those negative thoughts and those negative feelings. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. I really like that example, by the way. That is really cool. That's a nice visual to put to it.
Thank you. I must admit, there's another host on on VCN TV, the Video Content Network, the digital television network I own. Her name is Reba Linker, and she does a very similar thing. It's talking about filling your cup, and she used blue food dye in one of her episodes. Maybe I'll link to it down below so you guys can see it. But it's kind of just popped in my head as you were talking about it. It's like, yeah, the blue food coloring example would work really well here. So.
Works perfectly. That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. It's the more you build up that support system and people that are cheering you on, the less you even notice those who are going to be critical. Like it really just starts to fade away.
Well, and it's interesting that we're talking about people, haters, so to speak, and negativity, because this all goes into the third key to success, which is all about developing healthy thinking patterns, or at least it's close enough. So when we're talking about developing healthy thinking patterns, what are we talking about here?
Really having a belief system that supports your success. And for me, I think this one is huge, and maybe that's from my days in psychology, knowing the power of beliefs, the power of the subconscious mind to guide our actions. But we really need to have that mindset of success if we want to succeed. That's where it starts, because all of our actions spring forth from what we believe is possible, the thoughts that we tell ourselves. So having that, healthy thoughts that support us, being aware of our beliefs that are kind of rooted in fear, holding us back, and being able to change that from coming from a place of faith and really believing in ourselves.
Yeah, now I have a question for you. Do you believe if somebody just believes in themselves that's enough to be a success?
It certainly requires action. The belief without action isn't going to go very far. I think action is huge, really. Ultimately, it's our actions and our behavior that lead to the results or lead to the success. But the actions that we take are going to be influenced by our thought process. So it really has to start. And, people have probably heard this before, right? But I think that's why, the power of our thoughts and our belief is because it is going to guide our actions, what we notice in other people, what we notice around us. So action is absolutely necessary, and you want it coming from a place of a positive belief system, or at least supportive belief system.
Yeah, and I heard a quote once. It's something to the effect of, and who knows, maybe I even said it. Maybe I said this quote. I haven't figured that out yet. But it's something to the effect of, there is the old quote: whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're always right. But there's one that takes it a step further that pretty much says, just because you believe in yourself doesn't, just because you believe in, even if you take action, doesn't mean you're going to succeed. However, if you don't believe in yourself, that I can guarantee you won't succeed. So does that kind of, what do you think about that? In other words, and I'll say it again. It's like, a lot of people believe that, hey, just because I believe in myself and go out and take action, I'm going to succeed. And there's a school of thought out there that says, well, that doesn't guarantee your success. But what will guarantee your failure, or what will guarantee you not succeed, is if you don't believe in yourself. What do you think about that?
That's interesting. There's probably a lot to digest. And that's where I think having a coach really comes into play again, is we need somebody to guide our actions. Like, believing you can do it but having no sense of direction is still going to lead you maybe taking action without results, or wasting a lot of energy on things that aren't getting you to your end result, or the goals that you have. So, I think from that end of it, you definitely need that direction. And, also just, we feel better if we believe in ourselves. And, to go back to that quote, if we don't have that initial belief in ourselves, then we probably aren't going to take action at all to pursue our dreams and to turn those goals into reality. So then we're guaranteed to have no results. So we need to believe in ourselves, take action, and then having help along that way to help direct our action is key as well.
So let me ask you another question. When it comes to developing healthy thinking patterns, is there one place people could start? Like, say somebody's watching this and they're low, they're feeling like things are just falling down around them, and they've said, I know I have to develop a healthy thinking pattern. I have to change my thinking. Is there one tip, trick, revelation you can give folks that will help start them down the journey of developing a healthy thinking pattern?
Well, being aware is the first step, being aware of what your current beliefs are, your current thoughts, and then checking in with yourself throughout the day and saying, what am I thinking in this moment? Being aware of your speech patterns as well can be very revealing of what you're actually thinking. So cultivating that awareness, I think, is a huge step. Practicing affirmations, again, very helpful for people. But I really believe in kind of evidence-based affirmations, or affirmations that resonate with us. I think affirming something that we really don't believe doesn't get us anywhere except feeling really stupid or laughing at ourselves. And I've heard that from clients, like, I'm practicing these and it just feels really ridiculous. So what I tell my clients, a tip I get them to use is put, I am in the process in front of the affirmation. So I am in the process of creating abundance. I am in the process of reducing stress. And that can be easier to believe, simply inserting those words, and it just kind of changes the mindset, helps it resonate more, and really helps them get focused on a healthier way of thinking.
Yeah, I love the way you say that. The fact that, and let's face it, we're in the personal growth industry, and we, a lot of coaches are taught and told that you need to really just pump people up and fill them full of a lot of great helium and a lot of good stuff because they're down and they need to get over it. And it's like, well, that's great, but if they then can't achieve based on what we're telling them, then we're putting them in even a worse case, because coming down, when you're down at the bottom and you get that little light of hope, and then all of a sudden the car stops halfway up the hill and runs out of gas and has to roll all the way back down. It's 10 times worse than if you would never have been, than if you would have just stayed at the bottom. So I love how you talk about the fact that you talk about, I am in the process of, and like you said, you have to have something that's more believable before you can achieve it. And I love how that's a difference in the way you talk about things and the way, I'll say, a lot of other people talk. And I'm not saying anything's right, wrong, or indifferent. The fact of the matter is that when you tell people they can be anything, when you tell people, and you give them, and sometimes in all of our good meanings, sometimes we do a little more, I don't want to say harm than good, but that's the best way to put it. So I love the fact of the in the process thing. How do you help people when you're helping them develop a healthy thinking pattern? How do you help people stay in the process and not be overwhelmed by all the stuff coming around and really the end journey? Because that's all part of a healthy thinking pattern, right? It's staying in that process.
Right. And that's where I think the support really comes into play as well. Really having that support system and being aware of what you're giving your attention to around you. Like, we can choose what we read, what we watch, who we listen to, who we spend our time with. And I think that can really affect our thoughts as well, and our energy level. And we have that choice of how we spend our time, really, and to stay in that positive process and stay focused. I think you need that support, and you need to be aware of things that might take you off that track.
Yeah, that is great. And awareness, like you just said, awareness is such a key, because how many times have we woken up and said, how did I get here? Whether it's age, whether it's physical ability, whether it's a relationship, you just wake up one morning and go, how did we get here? And that's what great coaches like Kara and epic coaches like Kara want to help you avoid, is that that moment of, how the heck did we get here? Because it's a whole lot easier to stop from getting to a place than it is to all of a sudden wake up and realize you're in this place and have to try and figure out how to get out of it. It's kind of like I think it's the boiling lobster example. It's like, the fact of, eventually, I think it was or the toad, one of the two. It's an old example pretty much that says, how do you get a toad not to hop out of hot water? It's like you raise the heat very, very slowly so he doesn't realize what the heck is going on, and all of a sudden, boom, it boils. And you don't want to be in that state. And when you work with an epic coach like Kara, they help to, provide that guidance and develop different healthy thinking patterns so you can avoid being in that state. So, Kara, before I wrap this up, before I tell people how to get in contact with you and give them all the great, the skinny on the special offer that you've got, is there any one last thing that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Well, it's been great chatting with you and being able to, go over these success tips. And I would say, yeah, just really believing in yourself, having that positive support network, and as you're growing your business, don't neglect that self-care piece. Take time for yourself. You deserve that. And, talking about enjoying the process, enjoy the process of growing your business, because there's always going to be another level that you want to go to, and that's all part of life. So truly enjoy that process along the way, because that's, where so many of the lessons happen. So, be in that state of enjoyment and excitement and wanting to create and share, and that alone and that energy will help grow your business.
Oh, that is epic. Folks, I'm going to throw Kara's website up on the screen today. You've been listening to Kara Melendy, and she's been revealing, see, I got the new word down. I like that. She's been revealing all these tips and tricks, and I still can't get rid of my tips and tricks, but that's besides the point. Kara's been revealing to you how, as a womanpreneur, you can overcome stress and grow a profitable business. We started off today's episode talking about Kara's heroine's journey, and you heard all about the fact of, she went through some challenges as a child. She ended up being in the mental health industry, realized there was a different way to be able to do what she was doing and live life with more happiness, more fulfillment, and help. In the end, my translation, help more people. So if you didn't get a chance to watch the heroine's journey, go back and watch it, and then watch all about being a womanpreneur and overcoming stress and growing a profitable business through things like planning a week in advance, making self-care a priority, and developing healthy thinking patterns. And here's where I've been waiting all episode to get to. Folks, you got to go over to Coaching with a K with Kara. I love that. I love the K, coachingwithkara.com, because beginning on April 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Kara's going to be running an online stress detox program. So what you want to do is head over there right now. As soon as this episode is over, it'll be over in a couple of seconds. As soon as this episode is over, head over to Coaching with Kara right now. The spelling's on the screen. If you're listening to me, look at the screen. It's not coaching with a C, it's coaching with a K. Head over there right now so you can get in contact with Kara, so you can get all the information. Have any questions? If you have any questions about the program, and to set up a discovery session to make sure you're the right fit for this program. Folks, I hope you've been watching the whole episode. If not, where you been? It's, maybe it's still the clocks. Maybe, the clock change happened a while ago, but maybe your clocks are off. That's okay. Go back and watch the full episode. Make sure you head over to Coaching with Kara. That's coaching with a K with Kara.com. Head over there. Sign up for her online stress detox program. Get in touch with her so you can determine together if you're a right fit for the program. I highly recommend it, because it's going to start on April 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And folks, until the next episode of Expert Showcase, make it an epic day.